Hey everybody, it's Savannah. It's so nice to have you here today. Over the past few weeks, we have been sharing stories from people that we know and love, talking about how they have persevered through difficult times in their lives. 2 weeks ago, we shared an incredible story from campus pastor Ben Carr, and he spoke about how physical and spiritual perseverance go hand in hand. Last week, we shared a touching story from Hunter and Ryan Wynn, and they spoke about how they persevered through the loss of their twins. This week, we have a sweet story prepared for you. Why don't you check this out?
Hey, my name's Eddie, and this is my wife, Molly, and we'd love to talk to you a little bit about how we persevered through temptation. Do you want to start?
Yeah, I'm going to tell you a little bit about our story, how we met, and how we got through a really interesting situation that led to us dating and eventually getting married. I started working at Water's Edge Church shortly after Eddie did. That's where we met, and we met working there. And I was recently out of a relationship, and I knew that I wasn't with the person that I was meant to be with, but I knew that I also wasn't really ready for dating because I was still new in my relationship with God. And so I started to put all my time and attention into God, and I really began to pray to Him, hey, when the time is right and when the person that you have meant for me is in front of me, I need you to make it super, super obvious. And so I was hanging out with one of my friends from work, and she wanted to set me up with this guy. Eddie calls him Mr. Nice Smile. But to take some of the pressure off, she decided a group date to Busch Gardens was going to be the best way to introduce us and get us hanging out. And I think Eddie heard about this said group date, and he thought, I want to go. Is that right?
Yeah, just a bunch of friends going. I was like, I have extreme FOMO, so I was like, well, let me just tag along, and I invited myself and came.
Yeah, and the whole little setup was super awkward with Mr. Nice Smile, or whatever you call him. Super awkward. We did not connect instantly by any means, and it was made more awkward with my friend. Every time we got to a new ride, it was like, oh, Molly and Mr. Nice Smile are gonna ride together on every single ride. But I think that left Eddie wondering, questioning. I don't know, what would you say? I'd
use the word jealous, probably. and so quickly, my guy friends and I said that day was man switch day, and my man switch was flipped, and immediately I was like, oh, I'm not okay with this, and Molly's clearly much more than a friend in my mind, and so quickly I started I want to say wooing you, swooning. I don't know what the word I'm trying to say is. You can continue.
Okay. So basically from that point on, Eddie reached out to me. Things did not work out with Mr. Nice Smile. He never got my number or anything. But Eddie started to text me. And first it started about texting me a lot about work, and then it quickly turned into texting me about my personal life and who I am and all that fun stuff.
Dating tips, fellas.
And so I started to kind of ask God, I'm like, I asked you to make this really clear, but I didn't think that Eddie would be the person. But I'm really loving talking to Eddie, and I'm loving being around him, and just continue to give me clarity in this situation because I don't want to mess this up. So then that was, I don't know, we went to Christmas Town when we went to Busch Gardens. And so by the time we hit Christmas break, Eddie was off to Missouri and I was off to New York to visit family. And we texted non-stop the whole break. We both got back to Virginia around New Year's, and we hung out together for New Year's. And the next day he said, hey, I think the weather's supposed to be really great. We should go hiking. And so we went to Newport News Park. I shared way too many nerdy facts about birds, and Eddie listened to all of them. And it went from going on a hike to going out to lunch. Eddie bought me lunch. We went back to my apartment, we hung out, we watched movies, we played games, and we literally hung out till like 10 p.m. or something like that, which was awesome.
The very next day, I actually was sitting in Pastor Stu's office, and he was actually interviewing me for another position at the church, which would actually put me on the guest services team with Molly. And Pastor Stu, we talked a lot. Then he asked about our date the day before. I don't know how he found out about this date, but he knew. And but he was asking about that. Of course, we were totally honest with him and kind of said we went on our first real date yesterday, and there's a lot of interest there. And we'd like to continue dating. And he said, well, with this new position, we want to ensure that you can do your job really well. And with you both being fairly new on staff, we want to ensure that you do your relationship correctly too. And so he actually asked me in that day if I would take 6 months and not date Molly. Yeah, I know. 6 months and not date Molly. And so I said, yes, I'll do that. There's something to be said about submitting to the authority over you in that as well, but also persevering through the next 6 months. So I went back to you that night and said, hey, this is what Pastor Stu's asked. And I told him that, yes, I'm willing to do that. I hope you are as well. And you said, yes, of course. I mean, look at me. And so we decided to wait six months, and we put some boundaries on that. Do you want to talk about the boundaries or what?
Yeah, I don't care. We
put
a few things in place.
We did. We put a few things in place.
We had to establish what dating meant.
That's right.
So that we knew what not to do.
Yeah. And so we basically said the biggest thing was that we were not going to hang out alone. We said we would for that 6 months we would just hang out in large group settings, and so we invited some of our best friends over to third wheel it pretty often. We became
the most social we've ever been in our
entire
lives.
Both of us are introverts, and so for that time we were very extroverted, and we're doing all the things with all the friends, and I appreciate all you friends. And so yeah, it was a difficult time during that 6 months. It felt like forever.
Yeah.
Forever.
Yeah. I think the cool thing was we put barriers up so that we could still get to know each other. Without anything getting in the way. So there's nothing physical. Work came first before our relationship, but we did talk on the phone a lot. That gave us the opportunity to just really get to know each other on a very intimate level without there being that temptation of, physical relationship getting in the way of getting to know each other. Because that would have been too much like dating.
Yeah. So throughout the whole time, we hung out with all of our friends constantly, got to know each other really well. And honestly, it probably sped things up rather than even slowing them down. Even though that we were waiting for 6 months, I think it actually sped things up, because after the 6 months, 40 days later, we were engaged. I went all the way up to upstate New York, where Molly is from. She was there for her dad's retirement party or
birthday
party, and I surprised her up there at the winery and asked her to marry me on that day. 40 days later, and what's so cool is that 2 years later, to the day that we met on her first day at work, was the day we got married, and that's kind of how we persevered through temptation.
Yeah.
I am just a sucker for a good romance story. If today's story was touching to you, then please share it with your friends. And hey, if you like today's story, then please join us this upcoming Sunday online at 9:30 or 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, or at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And hey, if you can't make it on Sunday, don't worry. You can join us Tuesday or Thursday online at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And don't forget, join us next week for our final story, all themed around perseverance. I'll see you there.